Mm. So officially welcome to day one of the 5 Days to Flourish challenge. I'm your host, Emily Bauman, the diplomat turned copywriting queen. And today we have the honor of tuning in with Dylan Varenhorst, who is the human design maven. Welcome, Dylan.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me, Emily.
So I will just start with a little story of how you and I met. And then we will go into how to turn your business into something that is flourishing from your zone of genius and how to use human design to create a business that feels like your soul home. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, these linkages between finding your zone of genius, what that means, what that feels like, looks like, and anything else that Dylan wishes to bring through in this transmission. Does that feel good? All right.
Yeah.
So today we are here. I'm tuning in from Tulum, Mexico, where I first met Dylan when I was at a very shaky time in my life. Financially, I was on a roller coaster. I could have $20,000 in my bank account and then 20 pesos, which is like an American dollar. It was rock and roll. And so I was founding this beautiful fashion company called Alchemy. And I was doing all the things. I was doing photography. I was doing all kinds of different energetic outputs, really intense from my heart, but I was all over the place. And so money was reflecting that up and down energy. And so I had this opportunity to go back into my United Nations life. I was headhunted to go to Sudan in the heart of Africa. And essentially, I didn't know what the heck the universe was doing with me. I felt like I was in a spin cycle in a washing machine. And I had met Dylan years before, but I had never connected with him on the human design zone of genius that he offers. And I felt so confused because I knew that there was more stability and more flourishing, consistent energy that had to be available for me. I saw people doing it. And so before I set out for this 3-month adventure in Sudan, working for the United Nations, I called Dylan. I said, I need your help. I booked a reading. It was like the last 200 something dollars I had. And I was like, we're going in because I feel lost. I feel confused. And I know there's more. And on the other side of that reading, I had a recording that in the years to come, I watched 3 times because for the first time through human design, I understood my own energy. I understood how I worked. I understood how to make decisions in my own way. And I felt like I finally had permission to show up in the world in my own way. As the sassy sparkle mermaid who loves words more than anything and just this was it. So I feel like because Dylan was such an essential part of my path to flourishing, that I had to call in this favor and be like, homie, will you tune in with my people for the 5 Days to Flourish challenge? And here he is. So thank you so much, Dylan, for being with us. And I'm just excited to get going. Let's dive right in. Welcome, everybody. How are you feeling? Put a word in the chat box about how you're feeling about today's conversation, about your energy right now. Let's take a deep breath.
Aligned.
Aligned, yummy. So Dylan, would you do us the honor of beginning just by sharing how human design has changed your own life? What has been your path before we get into the specifics of the zone of genius aspect? Anything you care to share around that?
Yeah. So basically I found human design now like almost 12 years ago. And it was at a time in which I was going through a very conditioned idea of what success was. I was doing the whole college thing and thinking that that was going to produce, a lifestyle, a life that fulfilled me. It didn't. I was already 2 years into college and just feeling like my soul was draining out of my body on a daily basis. And I was reading a lot of Carlos Castaneda at the time. So I was exploring new ideas and connecting to kind of the idea of shamanism for the first time, just as like a background frequency. But after some like serious come to Jesus moments in my own process, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm out. And I found a fateful picture of this person hiking in the jungle. And as soon as I saw this photo, I was like, this is what I need to be doing. Like, that's where I need to go. So I followed this impulse, this response that arose out of my body. And that led me to a series of synchronicities that brought me to Hawaii, big island of Hawaii, and then from there, Kauai. And one synchronicity after the other led me smack dab in front of my human design chart for the first time. And as I looked at this screen, at this little tiki hut on Kauai, I was just like, this is me. Like, that's me. I can see it. The colors, the shapes, something about the geometry of this just landed right in my G center, which, as you learn more about human design, you'll know what that is. And it just made sense. It was just like, yeah, okay, it's illuminated now. And so for 7 years, I took in this technology and I applied it to my own life without really telling anyone, kind of just teaching myself, applying the knowledge, using it for my decision-making process. And from there, that led me into people just kind of organically starting to ask me about it and then recommending that I share it. And then it just kind of kept blossoming from there. So I was kind of already accidentally following what we call the strategy and authority in human design. This is kind of like your decision-making process that's custom tailored to you, that you can apply to anything, whether it's, life or business, even though they're all one thing. And yeah, that kind of, like, by me following and integrating and embodying the human design technology, it brought me to spaces and people that wanted to access me as a resource of knowledge. So that's how we got here today.
Beautiful. I just wanted to pause and honor you for spending 7 freaking years before you started to offer services, because in this day and age of the Instagram guru, people can take a human design course for 3 months and start offering sessions. I see it all the time. And so one of the differentiating factors with you is that you allowed it to blossom, with such deep roots. And that's why I see your Human Design Academy and your communities just being so successful, because you put in the work and you're a true master. So thank you for following your design and arriving here with us today from all over the world. I would love to enter this bar scene scenario. So one of the really cool ways that you helped me first understand people's different authorities is describing it in a bar. And you're like, Emily, if you're sitting in a bar, you're not the one going around and bopping and approaching everybody. You're doing something else. So would you feel good to explain to us the different ways that people make decisions based on a bar scenario? Would that be fun?
Yeah, sure. So first thing I want to say is that your aura, your electromagnetic field, which is, we could say 2 arms lengths in every direction around your body for most people. This is an extension of, the deepest coding of you, like who you are at your most unique frequency of a being. So when we talk about this scenario, we're talking about how the auras, the electromagnetic frequency of you, interacts in life. So in this scene, we have a group of people, and we're going to talk about the different ways that they kind of move through the world. So 70% of people are called generators. There's also half of that, which is also known as a manifesting generator, but they're all the same aura type. So generators, manifesting generators, these are beings with an open and enveloping aura. These are beings with a magnetic or vortex-like aura. So they're naturally designed to draw life towards them. And that's because they're the carriers of the life force, the energy that builds the world, that keeps the world going round and, making life happen. So life naturally needs the energy of the generators. And so it's easy for them to, when they know how they operate, to allow life to come and take the first step, to take the first lead and be like, hey, can we have some of your miraculous energy for this or that? And so, in this scene scenario, there's the generators that are just kind of, they're waiting to respond. And when generators hear this as their strategy, it can be kind of confusing or difficult for them, because like, well, how does anything happen if I'm waiting to respond? And it's actually through your aura, because the auras are talking before, the brains or the minds are talking. So these generator auras are just open, enveloping, pulling things in, taking life in. And the frequency match allows one energy to be drawn to another. So it's almost like how certain flowers have evolved to attract a certain kind of moth or butterfly or bee. There's a frequency match there. So the generators are giving off their life force energy, and that's pulling in aspects of the totality, other individuals that need that particular frequency or those skills, or just that zone of genius that that person holds. So the generators are just waiting for this response. And sometimes it's a generator responding to a generator. Oh, I'm responding to this person's energy. I'm responding to this person's outfit. I'm responding to this person's perfume. It could be anything. It's life. It's everything that's in life that you can respond to. So the generators are responding to each other. They're starting up conversations. They're kind of activating each other, because when a generator feels that call from life to respond to something, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is who I am, because the generators are waiting. And in that waiting time, they're kind of like, wait, who am I? Who am I? And then as soon as they get that gut yes that says, yes, this is what we're supposed to engage with our life force, they kind of activate, and the depth of who they are really gets to shine. So then we have about 20% of other people known as the projectors. And the projectors are here with a focused and penetrating aura. So projectors have arguably an even more passive strategy and authority, and that is to wait for the invitation. And that has some technicalities to it that, there's some nuances that need exploring if you're a projector. But in this scene, for this example, a projector is just waiting for the invitation. So we're in this space, and the projector is really just standing there shining. They're not open and enveloping. They're not really pulling something or someone towards them the same way as the generator, but they are there as kind of an energetic minority. They're standing out. They're different. They're not this open, enveloping, buzzy life force. They have a more focused and penetrating aura. And they're just there to show up and see who needs their codes, because they're guides, they're teachers. They are somebody who can help you activate who you are, show you who you are, because that focused and penetrating aura of a projector plugs in deeply to the other person, and it sees to the heart of their soul. So that's a very personal connection. And that's the cool thing about being a projector, is you really, really see people, and you really give them a deep experience of who they are. And that allows you to become a master of the human condition, and a master at guiding people through the human condition to their zone of genius.
Oh. One moment, I accidentally muted you, and okay, we're back.
Okay, awesome. And so, yeah, so the projectors are there waiting to perhaps guide a friend over to a match. For instance, we're in a bar scene, people are there to meet each other. The projector can see, this frequency, this energy, this generator would be a good match for that one. They're waiting for that person to maybe invite them to say, hey, like, who should I go talk to? Or, whatever the move is in that moment. There's that moment that the projector's energy actually beckons to the person that needs their help, needs their advice. And the auras talk first, and the auras say, oh, okay, you have some codes that I need. And then the invitation kind of happens spontaneously, and they get to share what they see, because a projector is somebody that sees very acutely, very deeply into others. So they have this beautiful way of naming the, overlooked aspects of people or the situation at large. Then we have manifestors. 8% of people are manifestors with this dense, repelling aura.
Whoa, so they're dense and repelling? I've never heard it described like that. This is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not a bad thing, because manifestors are here to make an impact. They're here to move energy. We've already got 70, 80, 90% of the population in the generators and projectors who are in a more passive or a more receptive strategy. They're waiting for something to respond or to be invited. The manifestors of the world are just here to initiate and impact people. So they don't have to wait for anything. They just move. And that's not to say that they have complete free will and can do anything in the world. Maybe they can if they want to, but their strategy is more about noticing what's naturally kind of arising and erupting out of their energy and allowing that creative impulse to just flow through them. So manifestors are going around and they're actually informing. So in walks the manifestor who has an agenda of, I want people to come to my event. So they're going around informing, initiating, kind of sparking people to a new awareness, a new realization, or a new opportunity. And that impactful aura is actually most powerfully felt when the manifestor leaves the space. So they enter in as this like big bowling ball of energy that's bumping people, kind of ricocheting things around like a pinball, perhaps. And it's rearranging the energy structure of the room. And then when they leave, the energy kind of, again, like fills in where that new space was created. And that's a catalytic experience, that they might have bumped into somebody, over here energetically that made them move to this side of the room, that made them see a different person, that made them respond or made someone else respond to them. And you have a whole new scenario going on. So manifestors are pushing people into new frontiers by informing and initiating. And then finally, we have the reflectors. So 1% of the population, maybe even less, people who have very little internal consistency. So they're a reflection of both the transits of the stars and planets and kind of the astro weather of the moment and those thematics and those energies, as well as whoever they're right in front of. So they're taking in a lot of energy and they're sampling it and they're reflecting it back. So they're kind of like an extension of what we call the program, which is like the transits or, what the planets are doing, what the stars are doing. So their life is really interesting because the reflector in this scenario may be surprised that they even showed up at this event because they were just kind of guided by some impulse or some sense or just a happenstance of experiences that were more created by the background energy of the moment. And there they are at this bar scene and they're walking up to each person and they're becoming a different person with each individual that they're connecting with. They're literally taking on that person's energy and reflecting it back to them. And they're getting this very unique experience of becoming what they're around to learn more about it. So they're really aware. Reflectors have a huge potential awareness of the nuances of life and who in that room is really unique, who really has that buzz of frequency that says they're living their zone of genius. They can feel that. They're like the canary in the coal mine in a way. And they're here to show us and point us in our process to what's truly working, who's truly a unique individual doing something, in an innovative way or a way that just hasn't been done a million times before. And they also have great feedback for our process because they see things that other people don't. So these are our 4 auras.
Wow. That was incredible. I really could see the scene and how it all works together and just loving how it celebrates our individual roles to create this cohesive expression of oneness. It's brilliantly designed and we all get to play our different parts. And for anyone who doesn't already have their human design chart, just wanted to say you can pop into the website myhumandesign.com, pull it up, and you'll instantly see if you're a generator, manifesting generator, all of the different energy profiles. Raise your hand in the chat if you know who you are, if you know your human design type. What do we call this, Dylan? Your authority? I'm such a newbie and I still love it.
We just talked about aura type.
Aura
Yes.
type. Amazing. Projector 5.1 says Livy. Oh, projector in the house. Manifesting generator says Juliana. Manifesting generator 2.4 says Grace. Generator, manifestor. Wow, we've got a really beautiful eclectic group here today in every sense of the word. Lisa's a projector, Loretta, Manny, Jen. Cool. We're like we're living out the scenario right now, everyone. And if you're listening, you're very welcome to send me a PM, a message about what this illuminated for you. So yeah, go to myhumandesign.com if you haven't already discovered your human design types. And now let us dive into the zone of genius. Dylan, how can human design, this mystery, help us in this outer concrete world? Like, how can we live from our zones of genius through human design? Tell me all the things. And if you have questions, pop them in the chat box and we can try to get to them at the end.
So I like to think of it, a lot of you have seen your human design chart. It's a very intricate blueprint that's a rendering of how your energy functions within the body, within the aura, within your life. It's also important to look at that chart and realize that is you, and it's also your life as a whole. So it tells a story of your life experience as well as the mechanics of your being. When we're looking at that chart, what we're really seeing is kind of the prayer you came to answer in this lifetime. We're all called into this world with a unique set of gifts, a genius zone. That's our contribution to this greater ecosystem of life. And the more that we refine and really tune in and get aligned to that gift that we're here to bring, success is inevitable, because that frequency becomes so strong that it's a natural attractor for those that need that gift, that need that transmission, that need just that maybe impact if you're a manifestor, that guidance if you're a projector, that life-giving creative gift if you're a generator or manifesting generator, that wisdom if you're a reflector. And so human design is really great because it allows us to take on the strategy and authority, which is a decision-making process. Your life is comprised of your decisions. Your decisions either take you closer to your being, which is a mystical, uncharted, ride. You never really know what you're going to get with your own energy if you're really diving in there. Or you can make decisions that are based on conditioning. And those conditioning-based decisions are ones that are built out of homogenization, the lowest common denominator, the least genius, way of moving. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's not something that allows us to step deeper and deeper into our process as unique beings having a unique experience with a unique awareness, a unique intelligence, a unique cognition. We're all filtering the universe in a very specific way. And the more specific we treat ourselves through specific strategies and authorities, the more refined our frequency becomes, and the more strong and clear the resonance of our frequency becomes. So then we're a much clearer attractor to the right opportunities. We're a much clearer match to the right clients. There's a million people teaching human design, but each teacher is going to have their own rendition, their own frequency. And that's really what's calling forward your people into your life. It's your aura. So we can either make decisions that are homogenized based on conditioning, which is really based on, strategic, fear-based, old stuff from the seven-centered era, or we can make really unique, really, really lean into the fact that our body's intelligence knows where to take us in this life, and the mind doesn't always know. The mind really very seldom knows. It just kind of borrows from other people's strategies and tries to rehash them in a way that looks and feels reliable. So yes, there's a measure of trust. There's a measure of courage needed to step more into your design and your zone of genius, because that immediate mental just assurance that everything's going to be fine because this is the reliable way that everyone else has done things, that's not there as much. But you do get into a rhythm with your own energy and your own aura, where once you hit a certain momentum, a certain kind of, just getting into the groove of your own frequency, then life just starts to take care of itself, because that's what we're built for. Ultimately, in this time in our evolution, we have this capacity to have our needs met at a very high level by being on frequency, by being in alignment with ourselves. because we're a frequency match for everything that we need in our unique story, our unique movie. So you get to go on this magical journey of trust and a little bit of shadow work, maybe, and a little bit of learning about aspects of yourself that are innate to you. They didn't come from what you learned. They didn't come from necessarily your experience. They were already deep inside you and they're ready to come out. And you're just in this constant unraveling, this constant discovery process of your own gifts and your own, the serendipity of when you trust yourself and you align to your design and how life shows up to support you in doing that. Because you're becoming a vessel of consciousness. You know, you're building your relationship with yourself to become pure awareness. And that's what life itself wants to reward, essentially, because we're getting to this critical mass moment in our evolution where those of us that are stepping most into evolutionary leadership, you know, living at the edge, you know, really stepping into our zone of genius, we're making the biggest contribution to the planet, not just in those that we help through our service, but just the energetic imprint that we're putting out into the world by having a clean, healthy, aligned aura that heals the ecosystem of this world to a degree that we can't even fathom. And those doing this work, both in service to those that they're connecting with and in service to the overall vibration of the planet, that's what life itself, that's what the life force of Gaia, our planet, is like, oh, they're really showing up. They get first dibs on what they need to further that frequency contribution. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. It's so poetic and clear. This is why I love these chats. It feels like rewarding the hard work, which also leads us to gifts. It's this beautiful circulation of devotional energy. Like, hi, I'm willing to show up to repattern myself, to align myself to my own unique pattern. And then the entire cosmos is celebrating and cheering and giving you more clarity, which surfaces more shadows for you to then purge and reprogram to get more clarity until, like you said, life sustains itself and we're flourishing in this beautiful symbiotic relationship with all of life, all humans. And every room that we enter, people just say, wow, you're so sparkly, or you're just so certain of who you are. And I love this energetic affirmation that you're talking about. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
And it's also about getting into this zone in life where, you know, your greatest work actually feels quite effortless because it's just an extension of the most natural aspect of you. So it's not like, oh, you know, my design is just taking me deeper and deeper into just creating this giant corporation or this giant company or this giant entity. To me, living in the design space is like, you know, your greatest work just is like breathing. You know, it feels so natural. It's just you. And that's also one of the sweetest aspects. It's not this like, let's pull all these things and build some, you know, elaborate contraption. It's really just like, it's just like this flow. It's the flow of life. And that's a miraculous thing to witness too, how, you know, what the old version of you might have considered would be hard work actually can be some of the most effortless, but most genius material.
Beautiful.
So
now, when it comes to a human design chart, let's go into a little specificity here. If it feels good for everyone, feel free to pull up your own chart. If not, you can look afterwards. I would love to look at the unconscious Mars placement, where we find our vocation, our calling, what it is that people inherently come to us for, and can be this source of effortless revenue in particular. What does that look like for you, Dylan? What is your interpretation of the unconscious Mars and that placement in our charts?
So Mars, we look at through the eyes of mutation, because Mars is a planet of impulse in the sense that it adds energy to a system. So when somebody's looking for a breakthrough, or to catalyze a new connection within their process. What they're looking for is a dose of energy, a dose of a different code that can kind of reconfigure the way that their pattern is functioning. So unconscious Mars, when we're talking about the unconscious in human design, we're talking about what's hard coded into the physical form. On the personality or the conscious side, it's all about the mind and how we think and how we relate and who we think we are. Unconscious is like, no, it's hardwired into this body that you're living in. So the unconscious Mars placement is something that you do naturally. You are it, actually, that gives the other a much needed impulse in a certain area. And if you tune into what this gate is and really learn the nature of, you could look at it through the eyes of the gene keys, where the vocation terminology comes from, or you can look at through the eyes of the I Ching, even this ancient Chinese system of divination that has been shown to directly mirror our genetic code. Either way, you're looking at the thematics of what this unconscious Mars placement brings, and that's a place where you're contributing a catalytic spark to that other person's process, or maybe a much needed edit, or a, lighting a fire under something. Mars is very fiery. It can be very impulsive, but when we know what we're working with, we channel that impulse into something that creates growth, aka mutation. The
nouveau. That's genius, because it affirms that all we literally have to do is show up as our deepest selves in the most pure form of our being, react from that life force energy, and other people are going to respond in a way that's like, yes, and can I hire you for this? Or yes, and can we spend time together? Or yes, and whatever it is, because, I really see prosperity not as the accumulation of wealth. Rather, it's all about just this exchange and fluidity of life force energy, constant in the flux. So I really appreciate that it's hardwired into us. Yeah. So we have
and the whole idea. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to change my internet connection 1 second, but keep going on the technical side.
The idea of the aura also shows us that, whatever your unconscious Mars placement is, or what any of your placements are, all of that information is carried in the frequency of your aura. So the more strong and clear your connection to yourself is, and the more aligned to your true nature that your decisions are, it's like, yes, you could spend time marketing yourself in a certain way to reflect what you have, but also your aura will just call in who needs that spark that your unconscious Mars placement has. So just keep that in mind. Like, you are always broadcasting, you are always marketing through the aura, because it's the frequency of your uniqueness.
Beautiful. And so later this week in the 5 Days to Flourish challenge, we're going to be talking about aura cleansing and aura hygiene techniques with Heather. We're going to be talking about how to take our zone of genius and configure it as a brand. So as an expression of our soul essence with Juliana, and so many different things. So tune in for all of these conversations, because what we're talking about today is the foundation of the rest of your entire life, which gets to flourish in ways that you didn't even know were possible. Yes. So we have a comment here from Noga Movement. She says, it is very difficult to be a manifester sometimes, especially living in the matrix. Oof. Yes, girl. Kudos to you for being in the matrix and being a system disruptor and the person that you are inside of everyday life. Dylan, do you have any tips or strategies for someone who has that penetrating energy and lives in a denser space, maybe a city?
Well, the lucky part about being a manifester is that your aura is very much like a force field. Us generators, we have to take in everything very deeply. We don't get to filter any of it out. You do. I mean, your energy is pushing out. So there's this sense that you do have some energetic protection on a higher degree than most people. Difficulty for a manifestor can come with the fact that they can be triggering because that impactful aura packs a punch. And if people have, unconscious stuff lingering around, or if they're just looking to point a finger at somebody that day so that they can play the victim and feel validated in their struggle or whatever, they're probably going to point the finger at the manifester because their energy is felt the most like abruptly or powerfully. And that's almost like, oh, they hurt me, and then it's just like this weird projection game that happens for manifestors where they're like, I don't even want to go out. Everyone's just like so triggered by me. But the thing is, this is where tuning into your strategy and authority to a very, high degree of uniqueness really comes in handy, because then the way that you move through whatever space that you're in is not about that anymore. It's more about what moves that I make are going to take me in even deeper alignment with my energy. And everyone else can just chill. Like everyone else will be okay and everyone's going to live. And the manifester themselves, really gets to look at this life as almost a bonus round, because the era of the manifester, when manifestors were really like the spotlight individuals of the world, which is a huge amount of responsibility, that time is gone. Now it's about the projectors and the generators running the show. But now it's like manifestors are like in retirement. This is like more of a leisure life for them, not meaning that you aren't involved and you aren't engaged and you aren't like a dynamic individual, but that you're really hand choosing what you engage with, because your impact is very powerful. It's very valuable. And those that you're interacting with need to value that impact for you to even think about leaving the house, for them. So it's just kind of looking at it like that way, and understanding also that any weird responses and backlashes you're getting from people, that's just their unconscious material. And you just kind of learn to, okay, that's happening over there. And love your impact. You just learn to love your impact unconditionally.
Ooh, love your impact unconditionally. That is a juicy truth nugget. We have another question from Livy, which talks about the ways that different archetypes are going to be interacting in the business world. So if you have a projector and you have a manifesting generator, for example, coming together, what are some tips for these two types to reach a deep level of understanding, respect, empathy around realms like how much rest they need, how long are the sessions going to go, who is going to be the one initiating communication, all of that sort of thing. So for this example, it's a manifesting generator and a projector.
Okay, so you, Livy, as the projector, would be very well advised to understand that manifesting generators are most often non-linear beings, which means that a very fixed schedule, very tight expectations of what happens and when may not be the best way to collaborate with an MG. It's more about creating kind of sandboxes for them to play in and to allow them to follow the natural impulse of their life force energy, that response that we talked about, so that they can jump into whatever aspect of the project feels most lights them up in that moment. And then from that place of satisfaction of being really engaged with what they want to do in that moment, they naturally, the life force naturally flows them through the entire system to allow the project to come into full manifestation. So I think that MGs have a lot of pressure put on them to do things in a very linear way. That's how we are conditioned in life, in the world. And sometimes they themselves don't know what that next focus is for them. And this is where being able to ask your MG with closed questions is really helpful. So generators and manifesting generators need to respond to something. But when you give them a question like, do you want to work on the accounting, the copy, or the marketing info? Like that doesn't allow them to differentiate from a place of their sacral, from their life force, what's actually speaking to them in that moment. So they need closed questions. Do you want to work on the marketing copy? Do you want to work on the outreach? You know, just that little pivot of not leaving the questions wide open and having a more narrow focus for them to respond to allows them to tune into what their energy is available for that day, that moment. And that makes it so much clearer for them to reach that sense that it's that the energy that they're putting into the project is circulating back to them. And that's where they get their satisfaction. And that's where they begin to amplify and grow. So yeah, I think that's the key there.
Amazing. I'm glad this is illuminating for you, Livy. MJ, I'm so glad you're going to do your chart after this call. And something I would add as a generator is that when we're working in groups, we're sensitive to everybody's energies. And there's this diplomat kind of energy that can come up as wanting to please. And so we can be so sensitive that we're not tuning into our bodies. And so especially as a sacral authority, having that womb authority and listening to our bodies as the ultimate boss has been life-changing for me after working with Dylan. And so for all of my generators and many gens out there, just really encouraging you to listen to what sounds you make, because our bodies have their own vocabulary. So if Dylan says, Emily, do you want to run a marathon with me in Costa Rica? I'll go, "Ee." And that high-pitched is a heck no. But if he says, Emily, do you want to fly to Hawaii and run a week retreat to help people discover their zone of genius? I'm gonna go, yeah, you know, and the body literally moves and responds. And so we get to listen to that as the new authority, as the new boss, as we become these beings of sacred service, right? And so it's not about what everyone else needs. It's not about the most appropriate answer. It's not about what you think people want for you to say. And so, yeah, that little nugget, just wishing to pop in there, listen to your body's noises as their own sacral language.
Totally. That is very important.
Yeah. And we're about to wrap up here, but I have one final question for everybody who struggles with resting or like managing their energy flows. I know that some types need a lot of rest, like projectors may just be exhausted after 1 hour of being out in public. Can you just speak to help everyone have permission to live and run their businesses with their own energy, even if you're living with someone who is infinitely energetic and you like, it can be so interesting out in the world here. So what do you think about different energy types and rest?
I think that first off, we need to look at our chart and really see, do you have a defined root center or not? Because if you have a defined root center, your system kind of needs to go and complete and achieve with more consistency. It's almost like there's energy that needs to be moved on a daily basis, where that can compound and become stressful on the body and even like become things like depression, where there's so much energy that has nowhere to go that we kind of shut down. So that's one thing that you can look at regardless of type. For generators and many gens, you know, that's the fun part with differentiating and becoming more, you know, uniquely, vibrantly you. Some people might have 16 breaks in a day, but they're still getting a lot done, or they're still, you know, achieving what they want to achieve in that time space. Some people may only work 5 minutes a day, and that's all they need to do because that's their zone of genius. They've woven their work-life balance into their uniqueness so strongly that they're very efficient. So generators and mani-gens, I think it's really interesting because when you're really doing what you love, you can do it until you absolutely collapse. And that's actually like a stellar zone to get into. I know it seems kind of intense or like extreme, but when a generator and a manifesting generator gets to use up all of their energy for what they love, for what they are truly designed for, they're then endowed with even more energy when they recharge. Even if it's a 5-minute nap after 8 hours of work, they're getting the full recharge and more. most people don't get to that place. So we don't see a lot of those examples, but it's truly a potential. And it's very much where the magic happens for those types. When it comes to manifestors, you're not here to finish things. That is something you need to level with yourself and forgive yourself if you've put too much pressure on yourself or guilt or shame, because you're not here to finish. You're just here to initiate and spark and let the generators with all their tons of energy come in and like complete the project. You know, you're the spark, you're the architect, you're the initiator, you're the chief, you know, but you're not the one that's sustaining things, and you shouldn't expect yourself to. Projectors are here to kind of surf the energy of others. So when you're a projector and you've been invited by aligned generators, who are the primary type that you're here to work with, generators and MGs, you kind of absorb and amplify the quality of their energy. So if these are satisfied, healthy functioning generators and MGs, that's what you're going to be, you know, that's what's flowing through you. And so it's kind of like you go and you engage with your generators and you activate because you're plugged into their energy. And then when you unplug, you fully unplug. You know, you really get out of everyone else's aura when it's time to rest. And I think that's a better tip that works for this situation than how much, because that's going to really be up to you and you feeling into your process. But when you are resting, it's important that there's no auras around you, because that allows you to clear out all that other people's energy that you've been using, so that you can get back to your space of clarity and focus and precision. Reflectors, depends on the day. You know, it's all based on the reflection that you're reflecting. So reflectors can be very dynamic. They can go through periods of their life where they're actually living as a generator for 6 months because of a transit or longer, or because of a relationship, or because of who they're around. That can be appropriate for them. One cannot necessarily prescribe or say how much or how little. They've just got to live it. So
Perfect. That's really powerful. Thank you for these really beautiful subtleties that are going to help us as individuals, but also knowing how to work together in new era teams and collaborations. It's so potent, and I'm just sucking it all in myself, because this is reprogramming in the most beautiful, heart coherent way. Thank you for all your questions as well, and for your presence here thus far. As we are heading towards the end of our incredible workshop here, I would like to invite everyone to go to Dylan's website and download this incredible resource. He has a book and it's free. I can hardly believe it's still free, but how to turn your human design into a business. So I'm just going to screen share briefly here. Go to hdmaven.com. Is this beautiful website to find the quantum blueprint to your soul. There's a pop-up, enter your email, connect with Dylan. And if you would like, book a human design embodiment reading with him. Yes. So that's an invitation that I just needed to extend. Dylan, do you have any programs coming up, any launches as well that you'd like to talk about?
yeah, right now we're in process with DNA Alignment Academy, which is like my kind of beginner level course that I teach live for, you know, people who want to get really comfortable with human design.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March, spring equinox, I'm launching my first certification, which is called the Rave Wayshower certification. And it's with a method that I've kind of trademarked myself called the 9-center completion method. So it's like a very systematized modality to get results with human design with clients, and however you're going to use that. So yeah, March 21st, we're doing this, we're starting the certification, and it's my next level. So I'm super excited for it. 12 years in the making, we're doing it.
Hot stuff. Grace had a question. What is the difference between a closed and an open center? Just briefly.
So a defined center is one that has consistent energy flowing. It's part of what makes you who you are, and you're here to refine and master that energy over the course of your life, and really that's part of your gift to the world. An open or an undefined center is one where you take an energy from the outside and you absorb and amplify it. So if I have an undefined root, I absorb and amplify the stress and pressure energy of those around me. Also, I can use their impulse of the defined root to work more consistently or get more motivation in a certain space. So these open and undefined centers can either be our greatest sources of conditioning, what blocks us, where we get in our own way, or they can be places of great wisdom, depending on our relationship with them. And it's all about awareness.
Beautiful. And right before we go, I have an amazing invitation for all of you going to share now. This is the first time I'm talking about it in public anywhere. It's called Femme Founders. It's going to be launching March 1st, a business and energy clarity space for women through copywriting and human design. And guess what? I've created something called Week Zero. Week Zero means before we even begin our live calls, that you will get a one-to-one reading with this master right here, Mr. Dylan, the human design maven, as my offering to your clarity for the rest of your entire life. So it's a 10-week live group training program. We're going to be starting March 1st. Enrollment isn't even open yet. I am just dropping this teaser nugget here. By the end of the week, you will be able to join, because your presence here means so much to me, and I can tell you're committed to more clarity by expressing your message, by showing up with confidence, and just attracting people from your zone of genius. Whatever that looks like for you, we're going to dive into it. But because Dylan is going to be an essential part of this process for all the women who enter Femme Founders, I wanted to introduce the idea, plant the seed that might flower into a fruit for you by the end of this week. So yay, very exciting stuff. Wow, thank you so much, Dylan. Thank you for everyone here watching on the replay, coming live. You're all amazing. I really felt it. Thank you for your participation. And Dylan, any parting words, anything you wish to say?
Just thank you all. And blessings to you all. I just feel like there's a lot of success in this room already, and I just can't wait for you all to keep growing and thriving and nourishing the world with your beautiful contribution. So thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you. And you know where to reach him, Human Design Maven on Instagram as well. I'm your host, Emily Bauman, and there's a little pew, pew, pew joy codes exploding from my heart and reaching you through our heart bridges all over the world right now. Thank you again. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for Crystal for tuning in, Lakeisha, Bushra, everybody. I'm going to do some Kochi chimes. And just wish you a beautiful rest of the day. See you tomorrow for the next day of our challenge. Over and out.
Bye, everyone.